Hello, GGG people. Many players have voiced their concern about the Clearspeed meta and how it hurts endgame difficulty, which Path of Exile has always been known for. Have you ever thought about introducing a completely separate, hardcore, Iron Man style challenge game mode that people could play alongside the core meta of PoE? I understand that rebalancing the entire game would take way too much time, so I proposed trying it out with indirect changes. An example of something like that was the removal of desync, which indirectly removed the cooldown of movement abilities, and nowadays some builds can fully explore and kill all mobs on the map in less than 30 seconds. Adding cooldowns to movement abilities and increasing monster life would indirectly fight some of the biggest power creep aspects in the game, such as crazy fast movement, overpowered potions, and on-kill effects that most builds can keep up 100% of the time throughout the entire map. The removal of instant logouts would also force hardcore and softcore players to play more strategically, but would allow players to participate in more big risk, big reward situations, therefore make the gameplay more exciting more frequently. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I look forward to your guys' response. Thanks.
So the Clearspeed meta. This is something that is a very hot topic at the moment, and we have mixed opinions on it. On one hand, this is people trying to play the game well. This is people taking a problem and solving the problem using the tools that are available. And we can't tell people not to do that, right? It's more a question of, is it healthy for people to have such high movement speed, to be able to clear maps in 30 seconds? And you know, we don't implicitly want people to be able to do that, and we do want to find ways to stop it. But we have to be very careful. Blanket nerfs to adding, say, cooldowns to movement abilities would certainly solve the problem, and would certainly make the game better, but upset like 80% of our users. And we've done this before. Cast on Crit a couple of years ago was in a really bad state, insofar as the fact that everyone would come home and have an amazing time playing the game, destroying everything with Cast on Crit. So we fixed it, and we noticed a big downturn. It took a long time to recover from that. Like, we just sabotaged things by saying players are having fun, let's stop that fun. And the thought process didn't quite go like that, but it involved us taking something that was clearly broken and fixing it. And movement skills right now are clearly broken, but we have to be careful not just to pull the plug on that and fix them, because people right now are having a good time doing this. To answer your question about an alternate, very hardcore mode where there are experimental changes, so I like this idea implicitly. We've discussed things like having a longer-term Blamped League, for example, something insanely hard for people to work their way through. And while the mods on Blamped probably aren't appropriate for this, having some kind of alternate, really hard content would be really cool. And I think that experimental changes like what you're suggesting would be really good to try to find out the right way of doing things. The problem is segregation of users and the perception that they have to be playing in the super hardcore mode. It took a very long time for us to train users out of the feeling that they're bad at the game if they aren't playing in hardcore versus standard. We want people to feel that the mode that they're playing in is correct for them. And if we provide an incredibly hard mode, a lot of people are going to be pressured by watching streamers and so on into feeling like they have to be playing in that mode. In addition, especially late in the leagues, there's already segregation of the community. We already have standard and hardcore and breach standard and breach hardcore and potentially solo self-found options in the future. So there are a lot of things that are already segregating the community, and if we cut it in half again with a super hardcore version, it's going to be a bit more of a ghost town at certain times of the league, and we want to avoid that. So there has to be a way of adding harder content to the game, and there has to be a way of addressing various concerns about certain abilities like move speed, but we're going to be very careful before we do this.
Hey GGG, it's Cooterz, and I just want to congratulate you guys on your 10 years of Gears. That is an awesome achievement, and it's really cool to see you guys make it this far. I have a question regarding private message logging or just history chat in general. I have this issue where people with their meme names these days, they're hard to remember, they're hard to type, and I have the issue where when I'm trading and I switch over characters, or maybe I'm just logging, or not logging up, but switching over characters and someone messages me for a trade, I forget their name or I don't remember how to spell it, and I feel really bad because I feel like I'm that one asshole who kind of just ignores them on a trade, and yeah, I feel really bad. So if there's any logging or history messaging, stuff like that down the pipeline, let me know, let us know, because I think it would be a great QL improvement.
The secret here is it's all logged to your client.txt file in the logs folder. So if you really need to get someone's name, like at the moment, I know this isn't a great answer, but if you need to get someone's name for like life or death situation, then it's in that file. So what you want here is the ability to see logs that are basically saved between sessions. Now, this basically falls in the category of obscure quality of life feature I'd never heard of until I saw this video. That doesn't mean we can't do it, and I suspect it's one of those things where someone's going to work it out one day and we can do this easily and then work out a way to do it. So I'll discuss it with the team. It's probably one of the less important quality of life things that we could improve, but I appreciate the note about it, and I do think that it's possible that we'll be able to do that in the future.
Hey guys, I'll keep this short and sweet. I have 3 questions regarding the current guild system. Firstly, will there be any look into adding more guild ranks and or customization to the current rank system? And secondly, about a year ago, Grinding Gear Games announced guild challenges would be coming soon, and I was wondering if they had scrapped this idea or put it aside for a later date. And lastly, is there any possibility in the near future for guild hideouts to be added to the game? And going back to question 2, would it be possible to add guild hideout points as a reward from guild challenges?
So talking about guilds in general, we like guilds. They help a lot with the social aspects of the game. They're a good system. We're glad we have them and we want to improve it. It's tricky allocating resources though, because as I've mentioned as answers to previous questions, we're putting a lot of resources towards things like performance, and it's very easy to kind of forget about guilds at the same time. And guilds are mostly improved when it comes to quality of life sweeps, where we have a look at what we can do to improve the usability of the game. For example, adding the last online times in, I believe, Prophecy. No, in Atlas. Yeah, in Atlas. So anyway, for example, top of our list of guild improvements is control clicking in and out of the guild stash, which has the same technical problems it has had for a few years that make it difficult, but that's going in as soon as we get time to do so. As will probably many of the suggestions you have here. So the first question is guild ranks. So this is one that our team haven't felt a strong need for. The guild hierarchies they have in their particular guilds haven't really required more ranks. So having said that, we've seen community members asking for it, and we want to assess how important this is to guilds. So I'm not quite sure the right way to give us feedback on that, because I don't want 100 emails from guilds explaining the importance of guild ranks. I do get that they're important, but we'll look into it and we'll work out where it ranks alongside all of the other guild priorities, because I don't want to take this question and deliver guild ranks when better guild item management, for example, might be a more important thing. The second question there relates to guild challenges. Now, guild challenges are actually an idea that we had back in 2013 alongside the initial early challenge system. We actually got them mostly implemented, but we ran into a number of balance considerations because there's a wide variety of different types of guilds out with different capabilities. If you have a guild that's full of top tier players, they will complete those challenges extremely quickly and reap whatever the rewards are. Likewise, if you have a guild that's mostly casual players, they're not going to necessarily be able to do any of the challenges. Now, that's when there were 8 challenges designed rather than 40, so the whole thing may look different nowadays. Now, it's tricky as well because we want to save our best challenges for the actual ones that the users are playing individually. That's the retention mechanism for making sure people try new and exciting stuff that pushes their boundaries within a league. Having said that, I'm sure at some stage we will come back to the idea of trying guild challenges out, especially when there are options like guild hideouts, as you say, for ways to reward players. Now, we discussed guild hideouts when we were looking at the hideout system, and it's loosely supported in the fact that you can nominate the guild leader to have a hideout and that kind of thing, but it's not something that's formally a space for the users to stay in. It wasn't initially added because it was technically relatively difficult. There's all sorts of permissions issues, and it gets to the point where you're implementing a ton of work for a system that realistically only a few % of players are actually going to engage in heavily. The people who are in absolutely hardcore guilds are not the most common players in the game. Having said that, it is something that we'd like to improve. So I can't promise guild hideouts in the future, but I do think it's an interesting idea. We have some hideout improvements pending. There's a bunch of new hideout decorations and so on, various cool tricks. I mean, I saw a hideout teleporter, for example, being worked on a little while ago. There's some stuff, new tile sets and so on, that we'd like to release, and it may be that we can bundle it all up with some new guild improvements to hideouts at the same time, because I'm sure you guys would appreciate that, but no promises at this stage.
What's up, guys? It's Hegemony, and I just wanted to know if you guys had any office traditions. Please be specific with the details, and thank you guys in advance.
Hey Hedgie, good to hear from you. Office traditions. Okay, so we have this tradition every Monday where we have a company meeting. Now you want a specificity with the details. Okay, between about 11:15 and 11:45 in the morning, food will arrive. Now this is usually carried up the stairs by Mike Woods. Sometimes he enlists a couple of other staff members to help him bring the food up the stairs. So we carry it into the recreational area where there's a large table. The table's made of wood. Food is placed on the table. Now the food can vary between a number of different options. The guys here like pizza, we like Mexican food, pitas are good, sometimes Chinese food, there's been sushi occasionally. Anyway, so the food is put on the tables. Now it takes a while to set it up. You've got to get the forks out of the drawer, put them in a pile, knives, same thing, serviettes, paper plates, cups. Got to make sure the drink fridges are stocked. So while this is going on, I'm in my office. Now I'm working out what I have to say at the meeting because there's important agenda specific stuff. What's the patch that week, fishing trips planned, that kind of stuff. We have to make sure that the team are up to date on how things are going. Typically, there's a new staff member each week on average. We try to taper people in one at a time, and so it's important to understand his backstory so I don't look like I only met the guy that day. Anyway, so food becomes ready, and Mike Woods comes up and says, food's ready. Now this is a stampede. There are 90 people here, and the people who get there first get to eat first. Otherwise there's a queue. So they move quickly. Anyway, so we run, and we get to the kitchen, and we queue up, get our food, and then people start talking. Now, in terms of technical detail about what they're talking about, you want a specificity. This is a Monday, so they're typically talking about what we did on the weekend. Now, this is either work or play. Play, there's probably games, movies, that kind of thing. Work, well, they're usually complaining to other people about the problems they had to solve over the weekend related to that person's work. You inflicted 12 hours on a Saturday because you made a mistake here, that kind of thing. Anyway, so people eat their food. At some point, they decide they want to get second, so they go back up to the table. There's still a queue at this point. Now, it's important that people, in the background here, Ziggy's cracking up. It's important that people are aware of the fact that other people haven't necessarily had their first food yet, and so they have to queue behind those people. Anyway, to cut a long story short, at some point in here, I'll stand up the front and address the team and give them a synopsis of the news for that week. And I try to keep this short and to the point, unlike the answer to this question.
That's fine. I'm going to have to cut this into 2 videos now.
Okay, sorry. Well, he wanted specific detail.
It's good.